That is John Cowsill back when he was part of the Beach Boys. They would bring him out on stage to the front for a couple of vocals that he would do, and that one right there, Darlin', at 105.5 WDHA here on All Mixed Up. And somebody who has worked a lot with John Cowsill lately joins us now, Dennis Diken. Good morning, and thank you so much for coming on with us.
Thanks for having me, Jim, as always, really.
We were talking off air before we came on about the impact of the passing of Brian Wilson, and both you and I kind of agree that we really haven't been able to process it yet.
It's true. It's going to take a while, I think. It's still abstract to me. He's been in my life since I started listening to them, well, in 62, so I was 5 at the time. So you could say that Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys have been in my life for way more than most of my life. And I think the other thing we were hitting on too is, although we didn't know him personally, we might have encountered him a number of times, but he felt like an older brother or a hip cousin who his spirit, his music, his spirit, and his whole being. He was such a regular guy too. There's some certain layers to regular, but he was approachable. He seemed like he could have been your friend, and it feels like you lost a family member. It really does.
Listening to the lyrics of some of those songs, I wasn't made for these times, or In My Room, like you just said, that's an older brother or a cousin or somebody who had an influence on you. Like, wow, he feels like that too.
Exactly.
I'm not the only one.
Yeah, he when I grew up to be a man, we were kids listening to that, wondering, what will it be like when we're older? And here he is, kind of, spelling out those same sentiments for us. And yeah, he really wrote relatable music. My goodness, and rendered it in such a magical way.
You mentioned about some of his lyrics, and wouldn't it be nice if we were older? And I don't know if you saw Mike Love's comment on social media yet, but Mike referenced that lyric, and they obviously had their differences over the years. And he said, "Now you're timeless." I thought, what a beautiful way to put that.
Mm. Wow. Yeah. Now I'm starting to feel it. Yeah, that is nice. Yeah, he is timeless. That music will live on. All these things sound cliche at these kind of moments, but they're true. That music has the power, and it's invested with such beauty and such a spirit that it will last for generations to come and speak to generations to come. Even if you took the lyrics away, just the music itself communicates such a sense of love and humanity.
What was it
Joy.
about Brian and the Beach Boys that attracted you?
Well, initially, although I heard Surfin' Safari, Surfin' USA was the record that really hooked me, and the B-side, Shutdown, were really big with me. All the elements that attract everybody, the harmonies certainly were so shiny, and even as a little kid, you couldn't help but feel the sunshine of their vocals. But it was also the totality of those records, like Surfing USA. A big part of I obviously gravitated towards the rhythms and the drums. Big part of my love for them was the foundation, the rhythmic foundation of their records. In Surfing USA, that 4 on the floor kick drum was a hook unto itself. But the guitars too, there's that one, the rhythm riff on Surfing USA. It's actually David Marks playing it, and with the treble turned way up as per Murray's instruction. That really hooked me too. I remember as a little kid thinking that's such a cool sound. It was the totality. It was the combination of the rhythms. And even as a kid, you're hearing the sophisticated music, but you're not necessarily thinking of it in those terms. But it still speaks to you on different levels than some other records might, because the music, maybe not so much on Surfing USA, although the way it was put together was very sophisticated. The total sophistication of the music, the rhythms, the guitars, the personalities of not just the beauty of the vocals, but the personality of their vocals. Mike Love's snarling wise ass persona really, I think, resonated with a lot of young people. Yeah, he's like the class clown, you know. He's a guy that you could hang around and joke with, and Brian's falsetto really, you know, there was a lot of records in the early '60s that seemed to embody that spirit of Camelot when we were all reaching for the stars. A lot of the Four Seasons records had those swooping high parts. A record like Telstar had that otherworldly quality, and the Beach Boys certainly had that. Brian's falsetto, it just made you feel like you were reaching for greater glory. So even though I may not have somehow put all those feelings or thoughts together in my mind as a six-year-old kid, I think it spoke to me in that way and spoke to all of us in that way. And I think that's part of the lasting power of that music.
One of the other things that I don't think we were able to process as kids, we we could follow along as the records were being released, but the competition, if you will, between the Beatles and the Beach Boys. Brian listens to Rubber Soul like, oh boy,
Yeah.
now I got to do something. And John and Paul listen to God Only Knows, and Paul turning to John and go, how are we ever going to top this?
Yeah.
We knew the music was getting more complex, if you will. We could hear that even at 10, 11, 12, 13, whatever age we happened to be at the time. But I don't think we realized the scope of what was going on.
No, I think you're right. And even before the Beatles, Brian had a competition with Phil Spector. Here's one of the greatest masterminds of pop music, Phil Spector, making these great records with the Wall of Sound and the great songwriting he had with Greenwich and Barry and Man and Weil and on and on. And Brian was really neck in neck with Phil Spector. So even before the Beatles, that was really starting to roll forward, man. And Spector was great, but he had to hire arrangers and he had to hire musicians. Brian could do it all in-house. He had the chops to do the arrangements, the writing, the arrangements, and he had the Beach Boys. Even before the Wrecking Crew came in, the Beach Boys played on the majority of their early hits, So anyway, I think that's an interesting focus as well.
About 10 years ago, I had an opportunity to interview Brian and his wife. It was when the Love and Mercy film came out that had John Cusack in it. And I mentioned to Brian that he struck me like a great superstar athlete, a superstar athlete who can slow the moment down. A basketball player who can see the whole court ahead of him, that sort of thing. And Brian, his vision, if you will, of what he wanted a record to sound like. And not only that, the vision of it, but to be able to put it together and the finished product come out reminds me very, very much of that superstar level athlete.
Did he react to that? What did he say to that?
He did. He actually did. He understood the point that I was making, and he talked about, and I'm going to play that interview a little later on this morning, as a matter of fact, replayed. He talked about the ability to hear these things and know what he was looking for in the moment.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting you make that analogy because you may know this, but Brian was a very good athlete. Like in high school, he was a very good, I think he was a pitcher. He was a good ball player and good football player too, baseball and football, and maybe basketball as well. So maybe that gene played into his musicality as well. That's very astute.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody who's followed the Smithereens music knows the connection between the Who and the Kinks and the Beatles. What I think they may not catch is the Smithereens and the connection with the Beach Boys. And very, very early on, you guys, in fact, recorded a Smithereens song, I think going back all the way to 1980, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we recorded a Beach Boys tune called Girl Don't Tell Me on our EP, Girls About Town. Had 4 songs on it, 3 originals, and the song Girl Don't Tell Me, which was Brian's answer, I guess you would say, to Ticket to Ride. So he has said, had a 12-string circular guitar riff. And it was Carl Wilson's, not his first vocal, but his first vocal of note. So Carl sang lead on that. And it's one of the few Beach Boys tracks that has no harmonies on it.
Hmm.
interestingly. And it appeared, it was a B-side, I think maybe of Barbara Ann, and it was also featured on the Summer Days and Summer Nights album. Great album. But no, all of us going back to our childhood were huge Beach Boys fans. Pat often talked about a lot of their records, in particular the All Summer Long album was a big, big favorite of Pat's. And yeah, Mike, Jimmy, and I all love the Beach Boys. I mean, they loom so large in our inspiration, in our musical makeup. Yeah.
And then, of course, there are some songs that really reference the Beach Boys sonically. If the Sun Doesn't Shine is a
Mm-hmm.
classic example of that. And that might be one of my top five Smithereens songs, Dennis.
Oh, thank you. That's from the Green Thoughts album. I think it's a bit of a sleeper. Robin Wilson from Gin Blossoms, who performs with us quite a bit, cites that as his favorite, I believe. We usually perform that. We took that out of Mothballs and we performed that song when Robin's with us. I think I remember recording that, yeah, with great fondness. It definitely smacks of the Ronettes and the
Hmm.
Beach Boys. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely the Ronettes and the Beach Boys there.
Mhm.
Coming up Saturday night, I believe the show is sold out, and this one will be with Marshall Crenshaw at the Wonder Bar. Do you
Mm.
know of anything else coming up in the not too distant future in the New York, New Jersey area?
No, not in the New York, New Jersey area. No, unfortunately, we are playing on the West Coast coming up very soon in Rancho Mirage and on the 28th, and Menlo Park, not New Jersey, but California on the 26th. I'm sure people all over the country are listening to you.
Well, let's hope so. Then we can
Yeah,
hop a flight, right?
yeah, by all means. Did you
Official.
grow up? So you grew up loving the Beach Boys too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hmm.
No question about it. I mean, and the weird thing was I didn't get to California until mid 20s maybe, and hearing the Beach Boys on the West Coast in their own home environment, if you will, I liken it somewhat to hearing Southside Johnny or Bruce
Huh,
Springsteen or the Smithereens
totally.
here in New Jersey. It's totally different hearing you guys on the West Coast, when you
Hmm.
think about it.
Hmm. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I could understand that for sure. Yeah. Where did
But
you
you,
see them on the West Coast?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you. I
Well,
know I saw them at Live Aid,
oh
but
yeah,
that's here in Philadelphia. And again, a
right.
totally different experience.
Yeah. Well, the minute you find out, you let me know.
I'll text you. I'll get on the phone. Dennis, thank you as always for your time. You can check out all the Smithereens stuff going on at officialsmithereens.com. I thank you so much, my friend.
Thanks as always, Jim. It's always a pleasure to hang out with you. And long live Brian Wilson. Uh, that's all I can say. We love him. We'll always love him.
Love and mercy.
Yes, love and mercy.